Welcome dear students to another class of 9 English. Today we'll start the second lesson, the Adventures of Toto of Moments. In this particular lesson you will see about the pet loving grandfather who loves pet animals, who is after retirement at home, and he whiles away his time with the animals who are kept as pet in his house. So he lastly has bought a monkey. The baby monkey which he has brought, here he asks that whether he is mischievous or docile, that we'll see. And he also, in the preface of this lesson, he's asking whether you have also have experienced a monkey as a pet. If you're not, let's see then how grandfather brings that monkey into the house and what problem it creates for him and the family. Grandfather bought Toto from a Tonga driver for a sum of 5 rupees. The Tonga driver used to keep the little red monkey tied to a feeding trough, and the monkey looked so out of place there that grandfather decided he would add the little fellow to his private zoo. So whatever the animals are that, I'll definitely take this small baby monkey to my house, and I will add him to the pets which I have with me. Toto was a pretty monkey. His bright eyes sparkled with a mischief beneath deep set eyebrows, and his teeth, which were purely white, those white teeth, it was clean, were very often displayed in a smile that frightened the life of the elderly Anglo-Indian ladies. When a monkey gives a broad smile, then you feel it wants to attack, or he is dangerous at that time. So the Anglo-Indian ladies, which were the English ladies, they were Indian, and they saw him that was this way, and they got frightened. But his hands looked dried up as though they had been pickled in the sun for many years. Pickled in the sun, you keep in the sun to dry, and that way. So here he is compared, his hands are compared with that, it is dry, because it's because of constant use. A monkey uses a lot of his hands at that time during his life. Yet his fingers were quick and wicked, and his tail, while adding to his good looks, grandfather believed a tail would add to anyone's good looks. So he makes an irony where that if a tail is there for anyone, he says, he doesn't compare it with an animal or like that. He gives a general category that anyone, if he has a tail, he is always looking good. Also served as a third hand. And in case of these animals, monkeys in particular with long tail is very strong, and they can be used as a third hand. You've seen Hanuman, Ram's devotee, and he used his tail to burn whole of Lanka. So you can see how monkeys in particular, a very good example of a legendary Hanuman, that we pray him as a Hanuman Bhagwan. Today as a devotee, he used his tail to burn Lanka. So we have seen in as a legend. The third hand, he could use it to hang from a branch, and it was capable of scooping up any delicacy that might be out of reach of his hands. What thing he cannot do with his hand, he could do with his tail. So that is why the third hand. Grandmother always was when grandfather brought home some new kind of bird or animal. So all the time he got these animals from here, or birds from here and there. And at that time, grandmother didn't like it, and she didn't like this fuss. Fuss means unnecessary, creating ruckus in the house and creating problem for other members. So it was decided that Toto's presence should be kept a secret from her until she was in a particularly good mood. Grandfather and I put him away in a little closet, opened it into my bedroom wall, where he was tied securely, or so we thought, to a peg fastened to the wall. So until grandmother was in good mood, it was not good, it was not advisable for grandfather to show that a monkey has been brought to the house. So at that time, it was decided that he would be put in the closet. Closet means the closed cupboard, and there he was tied securely. So you thought of a peg fastened in the wall. The wall, in that wall, that peg is there. Something can be tied. That peg, on that peg, it was he was tied so that he didn't move about more. A few hours later, when the grandfather and I came back, there's a writer, came back to release Toto, he found that the walls, which had been covered with some ornamental paper chosen by grandfather, now stood out as a naked brick and plaster. The all scratches, the plaster was taken out with his hands, which is very rough, and therefore when grandfather and the author, the writer, goes to check Toto, at that time the peg in the wall had been wrenched from its socket. So much strength. Small baby monkeys are very mischievous, and they have a lot of strength. So even the peg which was there in the wall was taken out by the strength of this Toto, and that is called wrench from its socket. Where it was fixed, it was taken out from that. And my school blazer, which had been hanging there, was in shreds. Shreds means the whole blazer which was there, that was torn off and into shreds, that's pieces. I wondered what grandmother would say, but grandfather didn't worry. Grandmother, as the writer knows, was very strict about things, but grandfather didn't worry. He seemed pleased with Toto's performance. Yes, he's done good work. He's clever, said grandfather. Given time, I'm sure he would have tied the torn pieces of your blazer into a rope and made escape from the window. All the pieces that are made, he would tie and make a rope of it, and he will escape from this window down. His presence in the house still a secret. Toto was now transferred to a big cage in the servants' quarter, where a number of grandfather's pets lived very socially with them. Now he was secretly transferred to the other animals, pets which already grandfather had brought in the house. Which were they? A tortoise, a pair of rabbits, a tame squirrel. Squirrel was there, and for a while my pet goat. All these animals were already there in the house, but the monkey wouldn't allow any of his companions to sleep at night. All these animals, you see, they are very silent and mind their own ways. But monkeys are always, and baby monkeys are more mischievous. So when he was kept in the zoo by the grandfather, at that time it was not possible for the other animals to sleep, because his mischief making and noise making attitude, or even harassing this docile and good natured animals, would not allow them to sleep. So grandfather, who had to leave Dehradun next day, collect the pension in Saharanpur, decided to take him along. So grandfather decided that if I keep this baby monkey in the house, then he will create problem, and grandmother will definitely get annoyed. So it's better I'm going to Saharanpur to get pension in the train, and there I will take this monkey, and that will solve the problem. Unfortunately, I could not accompany grandfather on that trip. So he could not accompany the writer. But he told me about it afterwards. Again, what happened in the train, he was told by the grandfather. A big black canvas kit was provided for Toto. How we managed to take him in the train. Now, see, it is very comedy. This, with some straw at the bottom, became his new abode. So a black canvas was there, and that straw was put so that he could feel comfortable. When the bag was closed, there was no escape. Bag was closed, no one can get out of it. That way it was packed. There was no escape. Toto would not get his hands through the opening, and the canvas was too strong for him to bite this way through. So it was not possible for the hand to open, and it could not be torn also. It was so strong. His efforts to get out only had the effect of making the bag roll around about on the floor or occasionally jump into the air. An exhibition that attracted a curious crowd onlookers. So he would roll on the ground, and his efforts to get out, he did all things, and this from the bag, the movement people saw. You can see a very amused commuters over there. You are seeing, and from the bag, the monkey's putting out his head. So an exhibition was attracted curious crowd of onlookers on the Dehradun railway platform. So what is something happening in this bag, and movement is happening? So Dehradun railway station, all the commuters and passengers were there. They enjoyed this, crowd got curiosity means wanted to know what is in the bag, what type of animal that is there in the bag that is creating all these movements. Toto remained in the bag as far as Saharanpur, but while grandfather was producing his ticket at the railway turnstile means one person can only move out, so each one can be checked. The ticket checker can check that each passenger individually. All the passengers in the group cannot move out, so that turnstile is used. At that time, you can see over here, grandfather Toto suddenly poked his head out of the bag and gave the ticket collector a wide grin. Wide grin means seeing at this ticket collector what he is doing, what he is telling my grandfather. The poor man was taken aback, but with a great presence of mind and put to grandfather's annoyance. He said, "Sir, you have a dog with you. You will have to pay for it accordingly. There's a dog inside in your bag, so you have to pay for it. He is also, liable to take a ticket. And for that, if you have not bought the ticket for this dog which you are carrying, then you will have to pay fine for it. You have to pay for it accordingly." In vain did the grandfather take Toto out of the bag. In vain did he try to prove that the monkey did not qualify as a dog, or even he has a quadruped. Monkeys don't walk on 4 legs. It can walk on 2 legs. So he says that he doesn't fall in the category of dogs. He is actually a monkey, and so Toto was classified a dog by the ticket collector. He is considered as a dog, and therefore Toto was classified dog, and for 3 rupees was the sum handed over as his fare. He had to give 3 rupees for this, carrying a dog in the train. Then grandfather, just to get his own back, took out his pocket pet tortoise and said, "What must I pay for this, since you charge for all animals? This tortoise also I have. Do you want to charge for it, or you want to put a fine for carrying on the train? Do you want to?" The ticket collector looked closely at the tortoise, prodded it with his forefinger. Prodded means pushed and checked whether it is real tortoise. Gave grandfather a pleased and triumphant look and said, "No charge, it is not a dog." If it is in a dog, in that category only a charge will be levied. Otherwise, you will not have to pay charge for this tortoise, because he does not fall into the category of dog. I will not charge it. When Toto was finally accepted by grandmother, he was given a comfortable room in the stable, where he had a companion, the family donkey. So here a family donkey was there, and it was named Nana. So with that, he was put in the stable when he was brought. On Toto's first night in the stable, grandfather paid him a visit to see he was comfortable. another donkey which is in the zoo, private zoo of this grandfather. He wants to check whether the other animals or the Toto himself is comfortable or not. So to his surprise, he found Nana without apparent cause pulling at her halter and trying to keep her head as far as possible from the bundle of hay. So because Toto must have caught the halter or tied it somewhere, the animal, that is donkey, was not able to move his head towards the hay that was lying for his eating. Grandfather gave Nana a slap across her haunches, at the back, haunches means, and she jerked back, dragging Toto with her. So at that time he gets disturbed and he tries to move back, and at that time dragging Toto is also coming to his side. He had fastened it on her long ears with his sharp teeth, little teeth. It fastened means the halter had been fastened means tied with when he bit the ear, and that it got into it, and therefore this movement of this is done over here by of the Toto also, along with Nana moving back. Toto had Nana never become friend. Toto and Nana, because both are of difficult nature. Secondly, this Nana had a very bad experience of Toto, so obviously they cannot become friends. A great treat for Toto during the cold winter evenings, it was a large bowl of warm water. So another episode in this is about in winter, the cold water was not given for bathing of this Toto, and at that time warm water given him by grandmother for his bath. He would cunningly test the temperature with his hand. He would check whether it is warm or not. Then gradually step into the bath, first one foot, then the other, as he'd seen me doing. Just like grandfather doing, he also did that. Until he was into the water up to his neck. Till the neck part is there, he used to dip into that water, warm water. Because to avoid the cold or to get solace from the outside cold which is there. Once comfortable, he would take the soap in his hand or feet and rub himself all over. Soap also, like Nana was doing at this. The grandfather was taking bath. He used to observe him. Monkeys are very good, mimic they can do of what you do. So that he is applying soap to his body. And when the water becomes cold, he would get out and run it quickly as he would to the kitchen fire. He would dry himself. So kitchen fires they used to dry because sometimes the water keeps you warm, but after that, if obviously the water becomes tepid, and at that time when you move out, again the temperature of the water on your body becomes cool, and that gives you again shiver in this winter. So at that time, he used to run to the fire to dry himself. So this water, which is cool now, can dry and he can feel the warmth. If anyone laughed at him during the performance, Toto's feeling would be hurt and he would refuse to go on with his bath. So no one should laugh also. Monkeys are very sensitive. On day, Toto nearly succeeded in boiling himself alive. So at one time, he was about to boil himself in the so hot water. He put himself that he was that condition of burning himself. So what was that? We will see in the next para. A large kitchen kettle had been left on the fire to boil for tea and Toto. Fire to boil for tea and Toto. The same fire was put in, and then the water to boil. Finding himself with nothing better to do, decided to remove the lid. Monkeys want to do something or the other. So the lid which was covered on the water which was being boiled, he took out. Finding the water just warm enough for a bath, he put it in, with his head sticking out from the open kettle. So He's in that vessel where the water is boiling inside, and from this kettle he is trying to move out his head. This was the time for a while until the water began to boil. Toto then raised himself a little, but finding cold outside, sat down again. So okay, water boiling takes place gradually, and this the monkey doesn't understand. And slowly, slowly the temperature rises. Grandfather arrived and hauled him up, half boiled, out of the kettle. The monkeys don't feel that very hotness down. So he was observed by the grandmother, and at that time he's howled. Howled means खींच के बाहर निकाला, and he half boiled out of the kettle. If there is a part of the brain especially devoted to mischief, that part was largely developed in Toto. As you know, the individual sectors of your brain do different functions. You studied in functions of the brain. So here the writer says that the section of the brain which is responsible for mischief making, which is there in Toto, that is very well developed. In other people also it is there. That is why the mischief making in children or young animals like Toto do mischief. That means the sector or this particular part of the brain which is well developed, matured, is there in Toto also, but it is in a large area of the brain. And therefore he plays mischief a lot. He was about tearing things and things to effort to get hold of her dress and tear a hole in it. So here, to whatever things he got, he tried to tear it and create problem and things and all that. One day at lunchtime, now this another incident. What happened in the lunchtime? A large dish of pulao stood in the center of the dining table. He entered the room to find Toto stuffing himself with rice. My grandmother screamed, and Toto threw a plate at her. One of my aunts rushed forward and received a glass of water in the face. So here, the pulao is taking the plate and nicely eating. So the water is also brought, and he received glass of water in the face. Then, when grandfather arrived, Toto picked up the dish of pulao and made his exit through a window. Now, as he knows, Toto fears this year the grandfather, and therefore, when he arrives, he takes the dish in his hand and jumps out of the window, taking the dish of pulao also with him, and made his exit through the window. He found him in the branches of the jackfruit tree. Just outside the jackfruit tree is there on that. The dish still in his arms. The dish is there. He remained there all afternoon eating slowly the rice, determined in finishing every grain. He wants to eat all that grain of rice which was left in the dish, who had screamed at him. And then, in order to spite grandmother, who had screamed at him, he flew the dish down from the tree and chattered with delight when it broke into 100 pieces. Always China clay, what do you call it? China dish is there. What is there? It is delicate, and when it falls, it breaks into pieces, the glass. And therefore, when he screams, gets annoyed, or he throws the dish down the tree, and it falls. See the mischief monger as a monkey Toto is. Obviously, Toto was not the sort of a pet who would keep for long. Such a person, such an animal that is, so much creating problem in the house. It cannot be part of the family. Even grandfather realized that he were not well-to-do and could not afford to frequent loss of dishes. Like that only, he goes on breaking the dishes, then it will not be possible for me to keep him creating such a loss of dishes and clothes and curtains and wallpaper. So much is tearing in, keeping the whole house in a mess. So grandfather found the Tonga driver and sold Toto back to him for only 3 rupees. He bought for how many rupees? 5 rupees initially in the lesson we saw. And taking into consideration the mischief monger that is, the mischief monger is sold Toto back to the original owner of the baby monkey, and that too only with 3 rupees, making a loss of 2 rupees. In those days 5 rupees was a big amount, and therefore at a loss he has to give back. So with this we have completed the lesson. You have to write the question answers given at the end of this particular lesson and complete it in your fair book. See you in the next chapter or next lesson. We'll continue. Till then, goodbye.